Many Australian women are struggling economically in the coronavirus recession. More older women are facing homelessness and big losses to the retirement incomes. Let's go live now to Helen Baker, financial advisor and author, founder of On Your Own 2 Feet. Thank you for joining us, Helen. You have some good morning. You have some alarming statistics on women in their 50s and 60s who are becoming the new homeless. What do we need to do to prevent this?
I think we've become more aware of the gender pay gap issue and also the issues with superannuation gap. But I think what we need to focus on now are various other elements and trends that are occurring. So for the likes of women tend to be the carers for their children, but also their parents. And parents-in-law is a new trend as well. We call it the sandwich generation, which means they're not able to work full-time. They may not even be able to work part-time. Other things we see, which is COVID-related now too, is we're going to see women over 50 and over 55 who are probably going to be put out of jobs, and then they're finding it very difficult to get back into the workforce, so under the ageism issues that we see. And then we have what we've seen is the value of childcare, the value of the aged care workers, the cleaners, all of those types of jobs that are primarily occupied by women but very underpaid compared to what other kind of roles are. We've also seen the issues of domestic violence, women fleeing from home, going through divorce, going through de facto splits without realising what their entitlements are, or just for escape, just not even wanting to pursue any kind of financial settlement for themselves. So there's a lot of issues that are accelerating this, and COVID is making it possibly even worse than it was before, but it's highlighting these issues that I think as a nation we need to start dealing with.
Yes, absolutely. And we are seeing COVID cases increasing across parts of Australia. And this, of course, is posing more health and economic stress. In terms of what we can teach ourselves and our children, you've got 5 important money lessons to learn. Your first one is emergency fund. Tell us about that.
Yes, I've always talked about having an emergency fund, you know, the 5 foundations. Just like if you build a house, you put things into the metal and the concrete to make sure it stands up. So an emergency fund is there for exactly times like this. But normally I would say 3 months of mortgage and rent and bills and spending would probably be enough. But I think what we're seeing now is you probably need a good 6 months in terms of providing for this gap that we've got.
And your second point is spending and investment plan.
Yeah, so I don't usually use the word budget. It's a little bit like a diet and we get really strict and then we blow it. But I think if we can work out what our spending is, which you can use the Money Smart website, you can actually clearly see where you're spending, and hopefully there's something left over from what you earn, so that then you can look at investing that. Do you pay off the home? Do you put it into super? What do you do with that money in order to accelerate your position? And at the moment, you probably want to look at maybe 3 spending plans. So the absolute basic to get by, a nice to have, and then the living the dream when we can all start travelling overseas again.
And speaking of travelling overseas, you've got your travel insurance, you've got all sorts of insurance from health, private, work, home. Tell us about what we need to do there.
So private health insurance it's a little bit of a trap really, because depending on how much you earn, you either pay more tax or have private health insurance, and it's going up at 9 to 10% year on year. So there's another problem that we need to start dealing with. But also to look inside your super about life, TPD, and importantly, income protection. That's one where people often don't have enough. And then there are the new legislation issues with you could lose your insurance through either consolidating your super or not having an active super policy, the right balance, or ticking opt-in. So insurance has become quite a complex area and a very big area where people are vulnerable as well.
Well, for example, with the superannuation, the recent scheme is allowing people to withdraw a maximum of $20,000 from their own super between April and September. Some people don't have a choice. But what are the ramifications?
Yeah, so the big problem obviously is that's there for retirement. So coming out, you not only lose the compounding effect of that growing over time, but when you're selling in a down market, instead of taking $10,000 from perhaps a cash component, which is unlikely, most people are bundled into these growth funds or balanced funds. So you're actually selling growth investments while the market's down. So you could be effectively hitting $15,000 or $20,000 on your 10,000 withdrawal. So multiply that by 2, that's maybe 40,000, and then over the long term, you're seriously damaging your future, particularly if you're getting later in this 50+ bracket where you're looking to retire.
It's really about reading the fine print, isn't it? Not only with the super, but with all the insurances and healthcare and so forth. But what if you don't have a job, you're on job seeker or job keeper, and you can't afford to keep up with your private health insurance, for example?
I think this is the issue where we're going to see in this second round with the stimulus, what happens around September. Are they still going to look at ways to support people? Are the health insurance companies going to take a hit and in order to help enable people to retain some of these funds that they can't afford to keep? Like, what is going to happen in those areas? I think we've still got a lot of areas that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. And your final point, I was actually talking to a friend yesterday. They were looking at their will, and they realised that they really needed to get that sorted. That's one of your 5 points, but also estate cleaning. Talk to us about that.
Yes, so what we talk about there is getting those wills and those powers of attorney in place. And no one wants to do it. No one wants to talk about death, right? So the idea is you kind of could do it once and hopefully you don't have to do it again. If you're struggling, and please don't use the will kits, maybe go to the public trustee if you really can't afford to see a lawyer. But hopefully you can go and see a really quality estate planning specialist, because they have really great tricks about what we call keeping assets in the bloodline and protecting the kids who might inherit your money from tax consequences. So it's really good to get quality advice. It's always about, we don't know what we don't know. In our industry, the devil is in the details. So what you don't know can come back and bite you. So please go and get advice.
So you're saying the will kits are not valid?
Well, depending on how you do it. So my understanding is that if you are a beneficiary of that will and you sign as a witness, I think that voids the will. So there's some issues around that. The other thing that people often don't realise is if they get married, their wills become void unless it was written in anticipation of marriage. So there's a lot of bits where people think they have things in place, but they actually don't. So, or there could be better ways to do it, which has, pays their money over time, makes their overall outcome better.
Yeah, great information. And finally, can you tell us about your book and the charity that you support?
Yes, so we use the money from this book, obviously, to educate women in the first world, and then we buy kids out of sex trafficking in the third world using the profits, or trying to get women to create businesses or get on the front end so that we can prevent them from falling into the cracks of those areas. So both of those books are there, and hopefully they help you realise why advice is valuable, or you read it and go, oh, now I can DIY from here. So whatever gets you on your own 2 feet and keeps you there is the best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Helen Baker, finance expert and author. You take care.
Thanks, Janie. Thank you.